Welcome to the Anchor Your Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Barb Gullen. I almost forgot what we were doing today, Tony.
We're doing a podcast,
It's the
Barb.
heat. I'm going to blame it on the heat.
Blame the heat. Yeah.
Yes. And, it still isn't as bad as it was last year. But, when I woke up this morning, it was in the high 60s and I got sidetracked and I couldn't walk my dog until about 2 hours later. And then it felt hot.
Yeah. Yeah, we're exactly the same. High 60s when I woke up, and we're going to hit 90 pretty soon.
We'll be a little bit over that today.
Yeah.
We're not getting a break where we're back down in the 80s until next week. And I know
Oh,
that people in Texas are audibly rolling their eyes at us whining
I
about
bet.
80s and 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're unseasonably warm today. The next 3 days are going to
Yeah.
be in the 90s here, which is
Oh, wow. That
crazy.
is
Yeah.
warm for you guys. Yeah. But
Very warm with humidity too, so
yes, and the potential for a tropical storm to develop in the Gulf this weekend, I saw.
wow, yeah.
So maybe we'll
Omaha
get
got hit
some
with a
much
pretty
needed
big
rain.
storm, and
They
almost
did.
150,000 people or 130,000 people without power.
My mom is among them.
She was without power there, huh?
Yes, yes, they have a generator to run
Oh,
the basic
that's good.
stuff, but my sister also lives there. They did not lose power, and so my sister was out of town, and she's like, "Mom, if you need to go over there, go over there."
Yeah. Well,
But
sure.
yeah, it's this weather thing is no joke. This
No. Yeah, especially with these extremes. Yeah. Well, we didn't come on here to talk about weather, but
we did
seriously,
not.
Barb, yeah, what do you got planned for this weekend? What are you doing?
I'm gonna be doing a little gardening.
Ah, gardening.
Yes,
I
we have
like it.
talked about how my significant other added a couple of extra garden beds to my backyard this year, and my garden has been going gangbusters.
Wow.
So I need to
Yeah.
go out there and give it a little TLC. I was out there this morning and I go out there every morning and I check everything. And I found these two cucumbers that were ready to harvest that I didn't even know were growing. Um, I did raised bed gardenings and I planted everything in a kind of condensed place. So there's a lot of leaves and vegetation. I mean, I've got tomatoes and cucumbers and
Oh,
watermelons
sure.
and sweet potatoes
Yeah.
all commingling and had to put up a trellis to get rid of some of the vines and get them out of the way. So, yeah, that was quite the surprise this morning. But we'll talk about more of that in a few minutes because, gardening and planning for retirement have a lot of similarities.
Really?
Yeah.
Gardening and planning for retirement.
Yep.
How does that work?
Well, first of all, they both take time. Okay. This isn't going to
Sure.
happen overnight. I
Right.
didn't put those seeds in the garden yesterday and have fully grown plants today. You've
No.
got to be patient when you're doing it, but you've also got to pick the right seeds for your environment.
Ah,
And when we're talking about saving for retirement, you need to pick the right investments that align with your risk tolerance. And you need to pick quality investments that will grow well
right.
because there are literally thousands of different investment options out there, and not all mutual funds, not all ETFs are built the same. If you don't
Right.
have somebody who is really diligent at the helm, it can be a bit of a rockier road than you want it to be. And on
Right.
days like today, where we are recording this when employment numbers came out, unemployment came in a little bit higher than everybody expected, and there were fewer new jobs created in the month of July than anticipated. So we are having one of those correction days in the market right now.
Ah. And it happens.
It
This is
does.
this is gonna happen. I mean, if you look over the last 100 years, the market has gone up, but there have been dips, and there are always corrections. I mean, we hit record highs a few weeks ago. Now
Yes.
we're seeing some corrections. So this is gonna happen.
It
And
does. It
yeah,
does. But that's why if you don't have the time to do the research and figure out what funds align with your risk tolerance, what investment options align with your risk and align with your values, it really helps to work with a fiduciary or an advisor who does this all day, every day.
Yeah, choosing the right seeds to plant or choosing the right financial vehicles to
Mhm.
grow that nest egg, like you say, you need patience to do that. And it reminds me of what my mom always used to tell me: patience is a virtue for which I can hardly wait. That's what
Absolutely. Your
my
mother is
mom
a wise woman.
she always said that to me. I always got a kick out of that. And speaking of that,
Well, I just think we should be building a nest egg.
or in the case of this conversation, growing a nest egg,
Growing a
right?
nest egg,
Yeah.
growing a nest
And
egg.
Marge from The Simpsons wanted to chime in there.
I love me a little March.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
takes
Who
me back
doesn't?
to my college years.
Yes.
Um, but while we're talking about gardening and using that analogy and talking about having a day in the market where we're having some corrections going on here, when you're weeding the garden, you want to be careful that you're not pulling up the plants, especially, when that garden is just starting. Like
Right.
I just started my second crop of beets and some other root plants because I already pulled the first round out, and so I can get another round in before it frosts. But when I'm weeding in that part of the garden, I have to be really careful that I don't pull up the sprouts of what I want to grow. And
Right.
on days like today, it is really, really tempting to try to sell what you've got, put it in cash, and try to keep things safe. And I had Varney and Company on this morning. They're on Fox News, or I'm sorry, Fox Business, while I was getting ready, and they were interviewing a hedge fund manager. And the host asked the hedge fund manager, he's like, "What's the most important thing people should know about a day like today?" And the hedge fund manager's first words were, "Don't panic."
Don't panic.
Don't panic. While you're still working, this is a day where if they happen to be investing in your 401k or your TSP or your 403b, you're actually going to be getting to buy some shares on sale.
Right.
Now, if you are closer to retirement or in retirement and you're 100% invested in the market, again, I would caution you to work with an advisor, preferably a fiduciary who understands how all of this works, and make sure that you've got things lined up so that you've got a little bit of a safety net somewhere to ride out these rougher seasons in the market. And I don't know that this is going to be a rough season. I don't know if by the time this podcast airs next week, we'll be back up to where we were. Excuse me, I inhaled incorrectly somehow. Um, I don't have a crystal ball, and if I did, I'm clumsy enough, I would probably drop it and crack it the first day I had it. But it's important to know that there are ebbs and flows in the market, just like there are with everything else in life.
Right. Right. And like you said, a downswing or a correction is a great time if you're constantly putting money in. If you're putting money in while it's down, that's a good thing,
Yeah,
because then we know it's going to grow back, like, typically it has in the past anyway. And so there you go. I mean, but you're right. If all your money is in the market and you're retired, so you're no longer putting money into those retirement accounts, then a downswing can really be harmful. And hopefully you have a plan in place to protect your assets. And you want to diversify, right? You don't want to just
right,
work the ground and till it and plow it and then get it ready to plant and just dump a bunch of carrot seeds on there and then walk
right.
away.
And
Hey, I really
especially
like carrots. You want some diversity with your garden. Hey, how about having some tomatoes or lettuce or cucumbers with those carrots, right?
right. And you can't just plant carrot seeds and expect to get lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, and broccoli.
Yeah.
There are people that are all in on a certain stock, especially the last couple of years. There have been 7 or 8 stocks that have been the darling of the S&P, and it's very tempting for an inexperienced or a novice investor to put all of their money in that basket.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been seven, the Magnificent Seven, and
Magnificent
people say,
Seven.
why don't we just put all our money there then? That's not how it works, and that's
No,
not going
it
to work.
isn't.
That's not going to work long term, right? So,
No, I
I
mean,
mean,
even the most astute portfolio managers are not putting all of their
right,
investments in those Magnificent Seven. That tells
right,
you everything you need to know right there.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even Warren Buffett, who's one of the premier investors ever in the history of the
Mhm.
stock market, doesn't do that.
No.
So obviously, you've got to look at these things and pay attention. But I do like this analogy, um, and I like the fact that listen to expert advice to really make it grow. You're not just going to
Mhm.
go in and start a garden knowing nothing. It's probably not going to and not list to get any advice or learn anything about it. But working with a financial professional is a must if you're going to grow that portfolio and have a solid retirement income when you get to retirement and make sure it's not all at risk. And that's where you come in, Barb. I
Thanks.
encourage our listeners to give you a call, and that number is 913-553-6222. That's 913-553-6222, because you're offering a no charge, no obligation consultation with you and your team there. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, we love what we do, and we love to have the opportunity to help people, provide them advice, give them information, and make sure that they're headed on the track that they want to be headed on while they're saving for retirement, saving for college, trying to create that future. Or even if they are retired, to make sure that they're in a place where that future is going to continue the way it has so far.
Right. Right. Well, and I love this. And you talked a little bit about weeding. That's my least favorite part of gardening,
Isn't
probably.
it? Isn't it
Or
always?
either that or keeping it water, knowing how often to water it, making sure it has enough water, but not too much water. That's actually the most difficult for me.
It
Uh,
can be. It really
yeah.
can be.
Yeah. So, but that's where a professional comes in, like yourself. And again, patience, right? You want to
Mhm.
wait. You don't want to take money out too soon. Again, you don't want to harvest too soon, right? That's one of your points that you wanted to make.
It is that you want to make sure that you're giving yourself that runway. And again, it's about not being reactionary on days like today. Or, really, we've had a series of days where the market has been correcting and pulling back.
Yes.
And this is not the time for you, now that it's down, to say, oh gosh, I need to get out of this. If you're still actively investing, it's a good situation to wait it out and see where everything is going to go.
Yeah.
Um, so much trading is done now automatically by bots and computers that are just literally looking at numbers. If this stock hits this price, then we do this. There's no emotion in it whatsoever. And we as humans are emotional beings, and it's hard. I get it. It is hard to see that, right now the Dow is down almost 800 points while we're recording this. We're close to 2% down at this moment. You muted yourself.
Oh, sorry. Well, I saw that too. Dow loses more than 800 points as recession
Hmm.
fears dent Wall Street. That's the headline. And it's so funny though. You got to watch out. The media is gonna they overhype it too. Like the sky is falling.
The
It's
media
like,
wants you to panic. The
yep,
media wants you to think that everybody else's garden is bigger and better than yours is.
right. Yeah. Yeah, and that you get out there now and make changes because the
Right.
sky is falling, right?
Right.
Right. Well, it's a correction. I mean, I don't know if we're. I mean,
And corrections happen within the year all the time. Corrections are actually healthy things to a certain extent. They
yeah,
let the market take a breather. They do some profit taking. They do some reallocating. It's part of the natural business cycle, and not anything that is something where we need to panic.
yeah,
And we, quite honestly, from the economic side of things, we have been overdue for a jobs report like this.
yeah. Yeah, it's really been, I mean, so far, the jobs reports and everything, the economy has actually been, all the news has been good the past year.
It has been. It has
Yeah.
been. But we knew at some point that unemployment was going to have to go up. We knew at some point, with interest rates going up, that the number of jobs being created was going to go down. We have been anticipating this and waiting for it.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So,
Yep. So, yeah, the key is back to what you said, don't panic, right?
right, right. And while we're on the subject of organizing your garden and talking about that, remember how I said at the top of the show I found those 2 cucumbers that I didn't even know had been growing?
Yes.
I bet that we have a bunch of listeners out here that have 401ks or 403bs from previous jobs that they may have forgotten to take with them. A lot of people assume that it just makes sense to leave them where they are and that's how they're diversifying out their savings.
Yeah, that doesn't work. And I am ashamed
No.
to admit, Barb, now this is before I worked with you, and this has been a while ago, a
Okay.
number of years ago, but my company I was working for a company. It got bought out by another company,
Mhm.
and we moved into their big building and got on their benefits. But I didn't do anything with I'd worked 5 years at that other company, and I just assumed it went over. I didn't do anything. And so I forgot about that 401k at the first company.
Mhm.
And I just kept looking at, boy, I thought I'd have more in my 401k here and, whatever. And then when I left that company, I'm like, oh, this doesn't seem right. And then I found a letter in a drawer and I'm like, oh, wait, this is a different.
Mhm.
I wonder if this didn't get transferred. Sure enough, I had forgotten about that 401k for
Yep.
5.5 years. I forgot about it and did
Mm.
nothing with it, which is, I could have been making money on that. And I probably wasn't making as much as I could have been.
That's very possible. If you're sitting out there going, "Oh gosh, I wonder if I have a 401k." I sent you a link this morning, Tony, that we can put in the show notes
Yes.
that will send you to an article that was written by bankrate.com that talks about several different ways you can look for one of those missing 401ks. Obviously, the fastest and easiest way to do it is to contact that former employer and see if they still have something for you.
Right.
But if, like in your situation, the company was bought out, there are websites like freeerisa.com where you can go out and take a look and see if you have something there. Um, if you really want to take a wild stab at things, you can look for the unclaimed property site in your state or in
I've also found some of that. Yeah. I moved a few times and then moved back to Minnesota from Tennessee. And it turns out I had 320 some dollars in unclaimed. I went on that site because somebody
Mhm.
told me about it. And sure enough, I got a check. I filled out the form and they eventually sent me the check. I
Yeah.
had no idea what the money was for, where it came from, but it was unclaimed money
Yeah.
that I was owed.
Yeah, it can be a bank account or a savings account that you forgot
I think this was
about.
like a utility refund when I
Yep,
moved, and
yep.
yeah, it's weird.
So, there might be all kinds of found money out there that you can use to, I think it's also kind of a cool idea to start multiple gardens, not only your 401k, but, let's plant an IRA garden while we're at it.
Yeah,
If
that's a
we've got
great idea.
the money,
Diversify,
or
maybe a
maybe
flower garden and a vegetable
right,
garden,
right.
right?
Or, if you aren't eligible for a deductible IRA or don't want to mess with the non-deductible IRA versus the deductible IRA. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to call me so that we can talk. Maybe you just want to start an investment account, a brokerage account of some sort with those after-tax dollars so that it can grow better. We have had some really nice interest rates with bank accounts lately, if you've looked for them. But again, Treasury yields are coming down.
Yeah.
The Fed chairman Wednesday, was alluding to the fact that they're probably going to start cutting interest rates. As they cut interest rates, the banks are also going to cut their interest rates. Now, if you're trying to buy a house and you're looking at borrowing, that's a good thing. But for those who are savers and who are trying to make as much money as possible on a savings account, then you're going to start making a little bit less money than you were. So maybe that brokerage account helps that garden grow a little bit faster.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to diversify, and
You
you know,
too.
you want a patch of sweet corn over here, some flowers, some vegetables. So work with a financial advisor like yourself. I can't stress that enough to our listeners out there, because you want to make sure you don't have all your eggs in one basket,
That's true. And
right?
next week's podcast will be raising chickens. And
Yeah,
no,
chickens.
it won't.
Why chickens hate snowblowers. Raising chickens is like finances. All right. All right. We can take these analogies way too far, Barb.
We
You know that.
can,
Yeah.
especially
Let's
you
not
and
get
I.
crazy.
It's Friday. We're a little punchy. It's the weekend. The
Yep.
Royals are ahead of the Twins in the standings. Sorry,
Oh,
had to get
you
that
had
in.
to. Crickets from
That's what
me,
the
a
garden
Twins fan.
sounds like. Yes.
All right. Enough with the sound effects for today, Barb. But great show. Barb, before we go, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you and set up that consultation.
They can always go to our website, which is anchoryourretirement.com, or you can reach us at our telephone number, area code 913-553-6222. Reach out to the appointments and scheduling team. They'll get you on either my calendar or one of our other qualified fiduciaries or agents, and we will be more than happy to help you sort out how your garden is growing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Barb. And listeners, thanks for tuning in and viewing. That does it for today's episode of Anchor Your Retirement with our host, Barb Gullen.
We'll see you soon.